The carriage rumbled along at a steady pace for half an hour, filled by turns with the conversation of Sir Leonard and Francis. Joanna was eager to be home, but she could see how fatigued her mother was looking, so she assumed the task of ensuring the conversation remained civil and as mundane as possible. Suddenly there was a deafening report, and the coach came to a rapid halt, sending its passengers into clumsy confusion as they tried to prevent themselves from colliding. Heart thudding against her chest, Joanna quickly composed herself and ensured her mother was well. "Stand and deliver," came the deep and muffled words. Joanna's head whipped around and she stared at Francis, who looked every bit as shocked as she did. "You," Lady Elkins said, pointing at Francis, "you did this." "Nonsense," said Francis contemptuously. "How in the world should I be responsible?" She stretched herself over Joanna in an attempt to peer out of the window where the lights from the carriage cast their beams onto the road. "Is it truly him?" "Choose your commissary," said the voice from without. "It is him, for he always requires a commissary, a woman." Frances hurried to rise, but she was prevented from doing so by her mother, who held her by the arm. The eyes of Joanna's mother, though, were on Joanna, urgent and pleading. On no account did she want Francis to leave the carriage, and Joanna couldn't agree with her more. They might never see Francis again. "A woman?" Lady Elkins said in a strangled voice. "For what purpose?" Her eyes grew wide. "Oh, heavens! I had hoped that was merely hearsay." She clutched her son's arm. He put a hand over hers and lifted his chin determinedly. "I will go." His voice trembled lightly, and by his expression, one might have been forgiven for thinking he meant to meet death itself. "No!" Lady Elkins cried out, holding his arm more tightly so he winced. "I cannot let you. He has a pistol, Leonard. Did you not hear? I will not sacrifice my own son." She knocked on the wall behind the coachman. "Do nothing, Irving," she called to him. "Do not provoke him further, do you hear me?" A trembling, "Aye, ma'am," sounded through the carriage wall. It was not the voice of someone who needed to be told twice. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Joanna said, rising from her seat. "I will deal with him." "Joanna," said her mother, wariness in her voice, "be careful." "You needn't worry, Mamma," Joanna replied with a reassuring look at her. "Why may I not go?" Frances said, her voice full of the injustice of her situation. "Because none of us wishes for you to ride off with the Paladin." She looked at her mother, who, though there was fear in her eyes, nodded. She saw Joanna for the reasonable, rational creature she was, and Joanna hoped Lady Elkins would do the same once the Highwayman had been routed. "Whatever happens, stay in here," Joanna said, looking around at all of them and showing an easy smile. "We shall be on our way in a trifle." Ducking, she stepped across the coach toward the door and pushed it open. "Give him what he asks, Miss Carmichael," said Lady Elkins in an urgent voice, huddled against her son. "It's the only way." Joanna didn't deign to respond to this, but behind her annoyance at the aggravating situation, she felt mild amusement at Lady Elkins' willingness to sacrifice Joanna's honour for her own safety and that of her son. "I shall never forgive you if he kisses you," Frances hissed. Joanna pushed the door open wider. "I can assure you he will not kiss me." She spoke with confidence, and loudly enough for the highwayman to hear, but she knew a fluttering of nerves as she stepped out into the dark. The coach lanterns illuminated the road and threw their beams far enough for Joanna to see a dark horse standing in the road and a man by its head. He wore a cocked hat and old-fashioned clothing, with both ruffled sleeves and shirt front, hardly suitable clothing for riding and robbing carriages. It was ridiculous, and the sight instilled her with a bit more confidence. She shot a censorious look at the coachman for his inaction, but he wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on the Paladin, who let go of his horse's bridle and took a few steps toward Joanna. He wore a dark mask over eyes and nose, but between the oppressive dark of the night and the shade his hat cast over his face, she wasn't quite sure the mask was necessary. "You seem quite confident of that, ma'am," said the Paladin in his deep voice. His smile glittered in the lantern light.